Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of LinkedIn Live. Here with us today is Rainforest Alliance, and this is a follow-up from the last session that we had with them. Rainforest Alliance is an international NGO dedicated to making sustainability the new normal. It promotes best practices in production system for agriculture commodities and forest management, and follows this through the value chain to support companies trading, processing, and manufacturing agriculture timber and paper products to source, trace, and promote them in their clients and consumers. India is one of Rainforest Alliance's priority countries, in which it works mostly in the coffee, spices, and tea sector. Joining us this live conversation is Ms. Rosie Chaudhary, Director, Southeast Asia. She is an international development professional specializing in poverty reduction, sustainability, and social protection for the last 2 decades in Asia and Africa. She's currently serving as the director in board of UTS India Limited and has been the country director and regional director for global NGOs like Mercy Corps, Goal, and REDA UK. As a South Asia director for Rainforest Alliance, she's leading a strategic growth in sustainability from agriculture farm to landscape to the domestic market. We also have with us Mr. Rijit Sen Gupta, the CEO of CRB, who will be taking forward the discussion. I warmly welcome both Rosie and Rijit and request Rijit to take this conversation forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavya.
Thank you, Bhavya. Thanks a lot, Sonali, also for setting this up. Good afternoon, Rosie. Welcome back to another round of our conversation on the importance of sustainable and inclusive businesses and societies.
Good afternoon, Vijay.
Good afternoon. Especially in the run up to the the annual conference that we're doing, and not just the conference, but this whole conversation about the importance of sustainable and inclusive businesses, markets, and societies. This has been really one of our key agenda as an organization, and that's probably the fact that it also aligns with your work and Rainforest's work. I think makes us really brought the two organizations together. So, of course, in the last session when we had this interaction with you, you talked about Rainforest Alliance and the work that you are doing here in India, and the relevance of all of that now and in the future. Let me ask you if you could share your thoughts on, now that if you look at the in India specifically, if you look at the numbers in terms of the COVID cases, the active COVID cases, you'll see that there's a downward spiral, that the numbers are going down for the last almost a month now. And of course, people are taking that as an indicator, and now the industry has started to sort of roll gradually forward. It's been, the lockdown is being eased. And public memory is very short, not in India, but also, everywhere, I guess. So what are your thoughts and, your hope? And probably we share that hope in terms of how will the importance of sustainable and inclusive business and sustainable, inclusive, resilient societies and markets, do you think that in the run-up, in the recovery process, as we all try to play the catch-up game, do you think that consideration towards sustainable and inclusive and resilient businesses and societies might get a little diluted? Or are you still as hopeful as we were probably, and we've been throughout this period? So if you can share your thoughts, Rosie, that'll be great.
Yeah, yes, Raju, thank you for that. Yes, we did discuss about Rainforest Alliance in our last conversation. And the pandemic that the planet is grappling with today is and needs to be a wake-up call, and that we cannot ignore. I mean, there's no snooze button. But to your question, if that will really happen, is something that's, yes, we do have a short memory and we do need to recover. priorities may change. That's a worry. And I would really advocate for governments to relook at policies and regulatory framework. I think that's required. Businesses to strengthen their values and their commitments and become more responsible and sustainable. And also for customers to make the right purchasing choice. I think this has to come together, and the effort cannot be just left as something that is a wish or a intention. It should be also a more actionable. And voluntary standards like Rainforest Alliance and organizations like Center for Responsible Business, we can show that urgency. I think we have that responsibility on ourselves to show that urgency of making the right choice, but not just show the urgency, also demonstrate the business value of making these operations more sustainable. It has to be a win-win solution, and that has to be demonstrated. So we can do that. That's what I believe in. And while traditionally, for example, certification systems would measure only compliance of supply chains against preset sustainability parameters, now the emphasis needs to move more from compliance to deeper insights, because every origin, every country will go through a different pattern. It's already different. I mean, it's not the same. So how do we understand this deeper, the challenges and the context? And then how do we set improvement mechanisms and also incentives? So that's something that organizations need to work on, and Rainforest Alliance is already working on some of those as part of the Reimagine certification. Now, COVID has also fast-tracked us into a digital world. It's just, for example, even this conference, which we would be meeting face-to-face, is now all digital. So that's happening. And then, the conversations and actions towards sustainability now also needs to be data-driven. So it's not just a jargon anymore. We can have new systems of tapping into the data. For example, if you want to tap into data that's even open source data, for example, or information on geospatial locations. So look at protected areas or tree cover loss, and how do we address concerns? So we need to bring those available information and make sure that measurements are more robust, impact is demonstrated, and also we can move forward at a more rapid pace. And my other point would be that we have also seen reversal of, unfortunately, human rights issues. In India, for example, child marriage statistics have gone up, child labor statistics have gone up in the last few months. So children who were in school and never had worked before now are found to be working or going in bus, like sometimes in bus loads and actually going for work. So it's a worrying trend. And I think stakeholders, policymakers and NGOs and private sector need to come together and start looking at these issues and prevent a fallout that will be taking us back maybe decades. So that's a worry that's already happening. And just an example that Rainforest Alliance has adopted, which we call the assess and address, and I had spoken about it a little bit last time. But here we are depending and also facilitating community-based systems for looking at these issues, not just compliance-based system, but also a community-based system of remediation, of prevention, mitigation, so that issues like forced labor or child labor or discrimination, can be addressed and can be looked at as improvement criteria over the years, because this will take time and we have to put our heads together, our hearts together to make sure that we come out of this pandemic more protected, is what I think.
Sure, no, thanks for those points. I think this is it is indeed important for us to continue the struggle or the advocacy, as you said, to governments, to businesses, to consumers, and to each one of us really as human beings, and and try and see, understand what each of us can do by ourselves, and also what we can do as groups. Equal amount of attention will have to be invested, on processes that are driven by the government, initiatives that are designed by businesses, and actions which are taken by each one of us in our communities, in our societies. So we will have to look at more deeper change, and more sort of entrenched sort of transformations, which definitely will need much more effort, than what we have invested earlier for each one of us. I mean, for organizations like ours, yours, for businesses, for community-run organizations, institutions, all of them. So.
Yeah.
And I think there is some sort of, if you look around, both globally and also at the national level, there are some signs that the message has gone through. The global initiative on investors initiative on sustainable development, the big sort of 30 most powerful companies have already, which was initiated last year with a with an ability to deploy, I think, about 16 trillion US dollars. Some of us were a little nervous again that we'll probably see that go into a time warp, but they have continued to rally on the point for sustainable financing and investments for on ESG sort of projects, etc. So I think these are some, and there's, I mean, the commitment has also gone up from, and they're saying that by the end of this year it might go up to 22 to 25 trillion US. So, businesses have come forward. What we understand, I mean, say in India also, whatever the government has done on Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India, there is always this focus on trying to see how we can create jobs, sort of ease the economic and the social misery to the extent possible. For, of course, we can talk about it that much more probably needs to be done, but at least some of these initiatives have already been started. So yeah, I think we have the onus is really on us to continue to sort of highlight this. Great. Now, zooming in into the conference and the conversation that you're planning to have next week during the CRB 7th Annual Conference. Tell us a little bit about the session that you have already planned, the conversation that you would like to do, which is rather interesting. And I won't take anything. I will not reveal anything right now, but I'll let the friends who've joined in the session to hear it from you about the purpose of the session and the conversation that you want to host next week, and what is it that you are aiming to get out of it, and how does this contribute to what we've just discussed in terms of continuing the engagement with businesses and communities and government. So yeah, if you can share some thoughts there.
Sure, yeah. So even to say that, see, like long-standing collaboration that we have with CRB and is a step that's towards this journey, right, in India. And so this joint session is just one of those approaches that that would help us to continue advocating and working for sustainability. So this particular session that we would be doing would be on the approaches for businesses to build resilience. And it'll take a closer look on how businesses can build resilience and adapt to the new normal. So, that's what we are discussing. So how businesses can, how can they actually make themselves more capable of adapting to this situation. And it will also review some of these approaches that already exist in this effort for sustainability. So we are looking particularly at three such approaches. One is standards and certification. So how standards and certification can or cannot, provide this space going ahead. And I would be talking to Veronica Semelkova from Net Coffee on their experience on tying up with the standard to meet their commitments. Then the second conversation would be on valuing the natural environment. So, and this conversation will be between, it will be between Capital Coalitions and AV InDep, which is a Mexican brewery, on the valuation of nature, people, and society in business decision making. So we'll be elaborating on sustainability, ecosystem services, maybe natural capital, and asking the questions if externalities can be included in calculating the cost of producing goods and services. Because that's where I was talking about incentives. And how do we build this in? How do we make sure that there's an incentive mechanisms when we make such commitments? And the third is about what you also mentioned, is about partnerships. So how does multi-stakeholder partnerships help in creating this movement towards sustainability? And Rainforest Alliance's program manager for India and Sri Lanka, Saji Kadavil, will be talking with Ramkumar Menon, who is the chairman of the World Spice Organization. And he will be talking they will be discussing about the National Sustainable Spice Program, which is a sector-wise platform on spices in India, public, private sector, small growers. And they're working on, on economic, social, and environmental concerns in the sector. So how this, you'll have to excuse me just a second. Sorry, that was the phone. So yeah, so they will be discussing this on the the platform, which is helping to get a better visibility on the spices sector in India as a sustainable sector. So those are the three areas that we will be talking about with three different groups. And what we hope to achieve is that how do we actually show these different cases as educational and enabling approaches for business operations as a mechanism, for greater uptake in India. So in India, are we see this movement having some traction in some of the developing world or developed world, but here in India, can we have that uptake? And then we're also trying to see if the civil society and businesses can work together and build knowledge and support adoption of sustainable business practices. And hoping that we would be having a good discussion followed with question and answers, where people would be able to ask some of the questions like, do you think that Indian consumers are ready for something like the Rainforest Alliance seal, for example, or any seal for that matter? Do you think consumers will value products with the seal? Or do you think ecosystem services is a good form of incentives for businesses and for the stakeholders? So questions like this, which will give the participants a platform to think and ponder and ask questions. So that's more or less in the nutshell.
Sure. Thanks for that. I mean, I think the one thing which I really liked about the session was really that there were some takeaways for businesses and other stakeholders who would choose to join this session. Mm-hmm. That these have been three different methodologies or approaches that have really helped in building business resilience, right? And so in addition to the organizations and companies and businesses and actors who've been part of some of these initiatives, whether these are adoption of a voluntary sustainability standard, or taking into consideration the valuation of natural capital in business decision making, or even being part of a multi-stakeholder platform. I mean, these three are the three sort of issues that you'll be talking about. I think the the value of this session really would also be to try and see if we can get some of the uninitiated also initiated on these tools, methods, and approaches. You know, it's a no-brainer for most that there is a need for a rejig or a reset of the the business, society, nature, people kind of the algorithm.
Hmm.
But the the question that remains is that where do we start? Whether it is for governments or municipalities or private sector companies or even resident welfare associations. I mean, where do we really start? And if uh, uh, these approaches can share, can highlight um, some of those, that these approaches, if they are able to highlight that whatever we need to do is within our means. It is not something which is very flowery, extremely complicated tool, methodology, approach. It's a simple initiative. You
Yeah.
will not, there's no compulsion really. It's not compliance sort of driven. It is more enabling. It's trying to facilitate a
Yeah.
movement so that businesses and I mean, I'll talk about business, that businesses can then even get rewarded for taking those actions. I think that would really spark a lot of interest among those who really are staying at the fence, and not really,
Yeah.
coming forward, because there is that level of lack of awareness or understanding about what will it take. Is this within our means? Does this mean investing a lot more money, effort, human resources, all of that? So I
Mm-hmm.
think if we are able to create that kind of a language which is enabling for those people who are at the fence, I think that would really make this a great session. And I think that we can do that. It has the potential to do so.
Yes. So yeah, just my concluding thought, and I know we are just here like in time for a big conference, and we are all excited. I'll just say that yes, we would have to start at multiple points. We have to work knock at different doors, and for Rainforest Alliance, I mean it is very important to strengthen the business case for producers to invest in sustainability, and also support traders to create a sustainable supply chain, by offering data tools, providing that important support, so that, like you're saying, there's often misinformation or not enough information to be able to take that leap, even if you have a wish. So how do we support the traders? And also support the brands to strengthen and communicate their investment. So that is important. So how do we do that? How do we give them data? How do we give them insights into risks and improvement performance? And how do they communicate it to their customers? And also, like I was saying, enable customers to make the right choice, the better choice, what product they buy. Can we give them transparent information, traceability, so that they can make that choice and feel proud about it? And the last of all, how do we incentivize producers? What mechanisms do we create so that producers see a benefit in it? And all these have to come together with the government policy framework to enable us to move ahead. And I think we can. I think, like you're saying, there are consciousness, there are a lot of possibilities. Even the Indian Palm Oil Coalition that all of us are part of is a very important platform for us to look at these issues collaboratively. I think there is hope, but we do need to act and act quick.
Sure, no, absolutely. I think we need to definitely act and perhaps even up the game a few notches so that we are able to continue the engagement. So thanks a lot, Rosie. As always, a pleasure to talk to you. I think just my parting thoughts on the what we are looking forward to from the session, and as we both these two organizations have always, sort of highlighted that, the session is just one of the various uh, things that we do together. And, it's part of a wider and a more sort of comprehensive partnership. So I believe, it might be very useful to take out or bring out some sort of, say, I won't say a thought piece, but maybe very small nuggets of, from each of these three interactions that you've planned. How can businesses be part of voluntary sustainability standards? What can help? How can it help them? How can it help the others in the ecosystem? Similarly, for valuation of natural capital in business decision making, how has it helped? How can that be done? So if you can bring out maybe 1 or 2 page, short, very crisp, sort of what should I say, a manual or a fact sheet, and we will be happy to disseminate it, widely across the business community. And I mean, you talked about the digital age, and I think this really also helps us in reaching out to a wider community of people, including the busy decision makers. So some of them will be there with us on the inaugural day of the conference.
Yeah.
But it does provide us that opportunity to reach out to them.
Yeah, sure. I think we could work on something like that, and work with you to just reach out to a larger audience. Sure, thank you for that suggestion. And yes, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you to the CRB team, Bhavya and Sonali, for supporting. And look forward to talk to you next week.
Absolutely. And lovely to talk to you as always, Rosie. And thanks again, Bhavya and Sonali, for setting it up. So let me turn it over back to Bhavya.
Thanks, Rijit. And thank you, Rosie, for joining the session. I'll just like to say, the friends who are watching this live session, that the session by Rainforest Alliance on tools and approaches for business to build resilient business, it will be held on the 30th of October from 11:45 to 1:15 p.m. at the 7th Annual Conference of CRB, the Indian Sustainability Standard. If you haven't registered, please go registered, and we hope to see you and connect with you next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.